Ryan Day doesn't like the Big 12, and it seems like Paul Finebaum is actually hoping an asteroid comes in from outer space and blows up the conference. Meanwhile, Greg Sankey, based on my thoughts, is in our corner. I know. This whole college football playoff landscape is getting chaotic, and I'm loving it.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day and making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. And today we're keeping the college football playoff streak alive. We're talking about it again. More quotes, more news, I guess, at least some ideas and thoughts coming out. We're going to talk about that first. Then we're going to dive into tight ends for the second 2/3 of today's show. We'll talk explicitly about Isaac Jensen's visit to Iowa State and his thoughts on that visit in the second segment. Then we'll take a look at the quarterback room, the tight end room as it sits right now, and what we can kind of expect for this upcoming season. Can't wait to dive into all that and more. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So I said three big names in that intro: Ryan Day, Greg Sankey, and Paul Finebaum. Okay. These quotes are just getting wild. And maybe it's because it's now June, right? Maybe that's a part of it, but this is getting insane. I don't know how else to say this. The Ryan Day quote wasn't too shocking to me. Believes that there should be at least 4 automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten. Okay. Interesting. He says, we're in the Big Ten. We have 18 teams and some of the best programs in the country. Yeah, you have some of the obviously won the national title last year. Okay. I don't need to really dwell on that too much. A lot of this conversation is going to be about Paul Finebaum. Greg Sankey, though, did say that, the potential reseeding kind of thought process of, I can't try to think of a sport that reseeds off the top of my head. I don't have one. But the concept being that, like, if all of, all the teams that win round one, when they make it to round two, they'll reseed them as opposed to keeping the seeds true to where they are. It's apparently not. Greg Sankey doesn't think that that's going to happen, in large part due to kind of the straight seeding that was proposed or is now a thing for this upcoming season just a few weeks ago. That was kind of the main thing he cited there. We'll talk about that a little bit, but the main takeaway is that I think that's good for Iowa State and for the Big 12. But Paul Finebaum, I mean, he's dropping bombs. That's what he's doing. I mean, is that what he gets paid to do? Because it feels like that's what he's constantly doing. And this is the big one. He says that it's maybe time for the SEC and the Big Ten to do what they want and forget everyone else. Okay. There's a lot to unpack here. It's a long, arduous journey to get through all of these words, which, I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes that's what happens. But he wasn't necessarily explicitly talking about the Big Ten and the SEC becoming separate, which we talked about yesterday in regards to Iowa State. I don't think Iowa State would be in too much trouble if that were to happen. I think Iowa State would find a home and find a way to be relevant and successful. Obviously, football, I believe, is on the upswing. Basketball already kind of at that upper tier level. Hilton Magic, so special. Excuse me. You get choked up. So special. One of the greatest venues and places to play college basketball in the entire country. But there are a few quotes here that Paul Finebaum said, and I would like to throw them out here just for you to kind of think about as I'm speaking here. He said, quote, "What I took away from 3 days in Destin was that the SEC has finally decided it's sick and tired of waiting and worrying and trying to deal with the rest of college sports." Okay. Goes on to say, "And if the rest of college sports doesn't like it, too bad. You can join us or not, but I'm so sick of hearing all these proposals to make sure that everybody in the room gets something. This is not Little League baseball. This is the absolute zenith of college football, and it should be treated that way as opposed to making sure everybody gets a third place ribbon." I will say this, Little League baseball, my team that I was on, we got run ruled in literally every game for the entire summer, and that is not a lie. That is not a joke. If there is anyone on Raider Power watching this, you know I am being dead serious. So we never competed for third place ribbons. I don't know how applicable, how much I can really dive into that portion of what he's saying, the Little League baseball portion, because we were getting sent home in the third inning. Once that run rule drops down, it was like a big steep from like 25 runs to 10 runs or something ridiculous, and all of a sudden it was like, "Yep, pack your bags. I think our next game's an hour and a half. Go eat a hot dog." that was what happened. Um, Nonetheless, what he's saying here is he's like, well, you guys are at the top. Just make all the decisions. You don't need to necessarily cater to those that are still kind of quote unquote in the same league, in this ballpark, right? Like this Power Four conference is what I'm getting at, right? So like I'm trying to think of, because the NFL has a lot of parity. So I'm trying to think of right now who's at the bottom, maybe like the Carolina Panthers and the Kansas City Chiefs, both in the NFL. And yes, any given Sunday, but like there is kind of levels to it. Maybe you could throw the Browns into that conversation. I'm not trying to dive in the NFL, but what I'm saying here is like there are some teams in the Power Four that just simply wouldn't be able to compete with an Ohio State or a Notre Dame from last year, like those national championship caliber teams, or I believe even like Arizona State. Maybe wasn't on that level. I guess we'll never truly know, but I thought they should have won that game against Texas, and that's an SEC school, and that's a Big 12 over an SEC school. Paul Finebaum was kissing the dirt when Texas won that game, because everything would have completely gone off the rails if a Big 12, the only Big 12 school to get in, wins against an SEC team. Like now it's trouble. But that's the past. That's not what happened. So I can't dive in, and really unpack that. That whole thing. Nonetheless, what he's saying here is like there is levels to this. There's a top, there's a bottom. Why don't you guys just go do your own thing and move on from the Big 12 or the ACC, or just do what you want, and they'll either have to figure it out or they will kind of have to leave. It feels like a take your ball and go home type of situation. Not exactly, but I don't love it. I don't think that that's necessarily right for the sport. As far as how this pertains to Iowa State, right there in the Big 12, and it's in my opinion, an up and coming program. We'll talk about obviously Isaac Jensen. That addition, this 2026 class could be really, really good. And I believe this year, like with the tight ends, this team could be really, really good this year. I think that the Big 12 in general could be really, really good this year. How many times can I say really in the last 30 seconds? But what I'm getting at is I don't think that this is fair to the Big 12, because what it feels like to me is it's like now becoming this race of, can we make all these changes and move on before the rest of college football catches up? And I know that feels like it came out of left field a little bit, because I didn't quite tee it up. I kind of hit that one straight off the deck. But what I'm saying here is in the next 5 years, college football is going to look much different than it did in 2015. In 5 years, right? Is that what I said? Be 2030? So it's 15 years. From 2015 to 2030. It's hardly going to be even the same sport. It's just going to be so different. And you could even, the further back you want to go, the further away you're getting from it, with players getting paid, either if it is in kind of a true authentic NIL situation, or if it's pay for play, which like is kind of what it is right now a little bit, or more than a little bit potentially. And then obviously the transfer portal, and we don't know what's going to iron out with that, but with roster limits and all of that, I think we're going to see, obviously with the JUCO thing that's going on too, like we're going to see this kind of leveling of the playing field, in my opinion. And the Power Four will be, I think it is, but it will be even more so a true Power Four, where there are like across the four leagues, it's not two teams that are really, really good in the SEC, a couple in the Big 10 that have a shot, maybe one in the ACC or the Big 12 that's like sort of in the right conversation there. No, I think it'll be like maybe one from each conference or two from each conference that's like really, really legit. Sometimes you go into the NFL playoffs, and on the AFC side, it's like, I don't know who's going to come out with this one. Like, it feels like the Chiefs aren't that good, but it's still the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, the Bang. Like, you can throw all these teams in there, and it's like, man, that's a lot of really good teams. It's going to matter which way does the ball bounce. Maybe the Cyclones are one of those teams from the Big 12 where it's like, man, the Cyclones are really good this year, but like, so is Boston College, or you know what I mean? Just some random team, not even a powerhouse like Georgia or Alabama that's been so good for so long, or Ohio State, an ACC, or I mean, Kansas State I saw had better odds to win the national title than Iowa State did, which is crazy. But maybe another team from the Big 12. Maybe it's Kansas State. Maybe it's Oklahoma State, which throwing out teams from the Big 12 feels a little bit crazy because it's such a parity-driven league conference, I guess, where, who knows this year who is the next Arizona State. I think that's pretty common for this conference. Nonetheless, I just felt like that was a crazy thing for Paul Finebaum to say, was like, let's just do that. And I wonder if that's what it's kind of rooted in. Eventually, it's going to catch up to him. Let's go ahead and talk about Iowa State explicitly now in this 2026 class with Isaac Jensen coming up right after this. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I've said it before, those Pacers are outpacing the competition, and Tyrese Halliburton is at the front of it all. I am keeping very close track of the Pacers. And obviously, how could you not get excited about $200 in bonus bets off a $5 bet if it hits? That's 40x. That's a definition of exciting. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Isaac Jensen, tight end, Millard South, could be an Iowa State Cyclone. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, Nick Marovitz, at Nick_Marv on Twitter, hope that Isaac Jensen finds a way to find a dorm room in Ames, whatever the case is, find a home as a Cyclone, because this dude could make a big difference. But let's talk about his official visit. And to kind of preface things here, obviously he has two teammates actually currently on the team already. Or at least committed. Jet Tamala could be maybe moving around. We'll see what happens there. But that's kind of a little bit of a sales pitch here. Iowa State has been so good in the Nebraska kind of pipeline, especially in this 2026 class. And I do think that will play a role. I wonder if Jet Tamala, swaps, if that plays a role. I don't know, but there is a quote that makes me hopeful. And I'll cover that in just a second here. As far as the independence of Isaac Jensen's kind of choice, as opposed to basing it on whether or not Jet Tamala will be a Cyclone. Wanted to get that out of the way because I think it's important, but it is also maybe not. You get what I'm saying there? All right, so let's talk about it. Isaac Jensen came on a visit to Iowa State and had a couple really good quotes as far as his thoughts on it. He said that it was great. My family loved it, and I loved it. The thing I liked the most was spending time with the tight ends and seeing what a weekend in their shoes is like, seeing how I'd fit in. Some other things that later in the interview he talked about were important. He said, obviously, utilization of the tight ends. I'll talk about that here in the third segment as far as Iowa State utilizing their tight ends last year versus this year, what I think that could look like. And then he also mentioned, the locker room's got to like each other. Everyone's got to be kind of on the same page there. He's like, most places are like that. I do think Iowa State is second to none. There's that phrase again. But yeah, he's right. It's kind of a lot of places are that way, or at least they appear that way on visits, right? It's kind of tough to really get a good gauge on that. I think if Isaac Jensen, if you're watching this, I think Iowa State's legitimately that way. I've had a lot of classes with football guys and just hearing things. I think that's really how it is. Now, I don't know. I wasn't in the room, but that's how it appears to me. He also said importance to him, as far as school goes, in kind of potentially sports management or kind of sports medicine, sports science kind of deal. Good program there. I can tell you right now, Forker has some of the coolest gyms, bro. I mean, that place is awesome. Spent a lot of time in there, and they do a very good job of getting you ready for the real world. I ended up on a microphone, but nonetheless, I would feel confident in any moment to go step into one of those jobs. I'm excited. That's something that a lot of people don't think about Iowa State for their kinesiology or their sports management programs. That's more of an engineering or an ag, but I don't think it's a weak spot. I think Iowa State does a very, very good job of coaching or I guess coaching up and teaching those kinds of students. So we've kind of ding, ding, ding on his big priorities, right? That's good news. That's good news if you're a Cyclone fan and if you want Isaac Jensen to be a future Cyclone, which I know I do. And now to kind of pivot, those are the things he's looking for, right? There are a few other visits he's going to go on here. He's got visits scheduled with Missouri, Florida State, and Texas A&M on the 6th, the 13th, and the 20th. Okay, a couple other big schools in there, definitely, coming after Iowa State, of course. But when asked about like what he's looking for in those schools, specifically Missouri was what the question was tailored towards. He was like, great, with the coaches and the culture. I think I fit in there, blah, blah, blah. Then at the end, he threw in a little nugget. And I thought this was really important. He said, I'm looking to see what I saw at Iowa State. Boom! Drop the mic. We set the tone. We set the tone early. That's what it is. Literally, I can't even wrap my mind around how important I think that is, where his perception of Iowa State is so good that if anyone else isn't on that level, now we're not even in the conversation. Like that they got to be at least at Iowa State's level, and I don't think they are, in my opinion. I think Iowa State's in a land of his own, so I feel very good about that comment. And I don't know if they walked him around campus, but if we get him back on another visit, we gotta walk him around campus, dude. Iowa State has the best campus in the whole entire planet, in my opinion. I mean, it's crazy. It's so nice. So that's obviously where he's going to be spending some time walking around Forker. I think that's important too. But the other quote that I read, or I guess I listened to it too, but read it, wrote it down, listened to it, blah, 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 that I think is important here is when asked about the teammates on the team, he said, quote, obviously it'd be pretty cool to play with Jet and AJ and live with them, but I'm going to do what's best for me. And if it is, then it is. But if it's not, I'm not going to put myself in a position to not succeed. So an independent decision. That's, in my opinion, that's good. It's got its ups and downs, right? Because with two guys on the team, if his priorities lie in, being on the same team as those guys, which it doesn't, but if it were, it'd be a good leverage point for Iowa State. Not a lot of other colleges in the country can say that. They just can't. They don't have Jet and AJ. Like Iowa State currently has them committed. So that would be a point of leverage. However, with the ongoing conversation of could Jet transfer, I don't know what's going to happen there. If Jet were to transfer and we were looking at a situation where Isaac was really locked in on, I want to play with Jet. I want Jet to be throwing me the ball in a few years or whatever the case is. Like then you're put in danger, right? So it's this kind of double-edged sword. I think in an independent choice, Iowa State probably benefits. You can really just lean on what the program is, the production we've put out in the past few years, specifically from the tight ends, and I think that you got a really good case there. So we'll see. We've got a little bit of a time before we really find out if Isaac Jensen will be coming to Iowa State. I heard a lot of good things in the interview. I think that Iowa State has a really solid pitch as far as the tight ends goes. And we're going to talk about that coming up here in just a second, where I break down the tight ends production from last year, tied to Isaac Jensen, and break down what I think this upcoming year could look like. Don't go anywhere. Tight ends are very important to football teams, believe it or not. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And Isaac Jensen is a tight end in the 2026 class that could be making his way to Ames. Could be a huge addition for the Cyclones. Let's just put it that way. However, this upcoming year, there are some big names that I'm looking out for at the tight end position to really move the needle for the Cyclones. Now, to move into next year, I think it's best to look back at last year, and a few names stand out. Gabe Burkle, Benjamin Bramer are the two that I want to look at first. Gabe Burkle kind of came into his own at the end of last season. Obviously, against Arizona State and Miami, had two really good games. 4 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown against Miami, and then had 5 receptions for 34 yards, along of 12 against Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. So across the season, went for 26 receptions, 296 yards, and a touchdown. Really came in at the kind of the latter half of the season, though. I think that's really, really good. 6'6", big body, 260 pounds. Then Benjamin Bramer with the highlight during this spring training period, which was a couple weeks ago now, at 6'7", a little lighter, but taller. On the season last year, had 10 receptions for 179 yards and a touchdown, right? So a little bit in the backseat there, just as far as actual numbers goes. But we talked a little bit about like how injured the tight end room was last year, and where I think Iowa State can make a huge jump in this next season. Now, to tie it back to Isaac Jensen, I think you're looking at a team that really does utilize their tight ends, and especially a team. Now, I know he wouldn't be joining the team this year, and things are going to change from this year to next year, right? I understand that this college football landscape is very fluid, but you're looking at a team that is now without two of the best wide receivers in football last season. Definitely the best duo, right? There were maybe some one-namers out there on teams that were arguably better than Jaden Higgins or Jalen Knoll on their own, one-on-one, but there was no wide receiver duo in the country better than Higgins and Knoll. No wide receiver duo in the country went for over 1,100 yards per wide receiver. I mean, that was just unheard. I couldn't believe it when I saw that stat, and it only kept getting better and better. Iowa State was on their own entirely in that category, which is awesome for last year. Now this year, without either of them, Iowa State's going to have to kind of figure that out, right? You're going to have to figure out which of the wide receivers are going to be those guys that Rocco can lean on, right? I have talked so much about, I think Iowa State will be just fine, because even if those wide receivers completely flame out and don't produce, which I don't think is going to be the case, there are other positions that the ball can be thrown to. You can throw the ball to tight ends. You can throw the ball to running backs. And I think that that's going to be, you're going to see a little bit of an uptick in tight end production as far as the through the air this season, just because of a different wide receiver room, right? Kind of just by the transitive property, working your way down through PEMDAS there. Now all of a sudden, oh, the tight end, boom, right? Route progression, bing, 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 boom, first down. Like that's, I think, what it's going to be. Now, a few of those names I'm looking out for, we've talked about it before, but my stance hasn't quite changed a whole lot. So it's Benjamin Bramer, I think, is going to be huge. Obviously, Gabe Burkle is going to be a big one. Tyler Moore kind of has that seniority to him. Good dude, too. Very good dude. Shout out to Tyler Moore. And I think it was 458 that we were in. No, it wasn't 458. It was that corporate kinesiology class. Very cool dude, though. And Cooper Alexander, a name, obviously didn't play last year, or at least a whole lot. Probably doesn't ring a whole lot of bells, but is a name that everyone's looking out for. This redshirt freshman is, the way I'm hearing things, is it's equivalent to when Patrick Mahomes was sitting behind Alex Smith. And everyone was like, yeah, Alex Smith is playing really well, but you should see the guy. You should see the guy next in line. Like, is a dude, is a real guy. And now look where he is, right? I don't think they were that far off. It's kind of how it feels around Cooper Alexander. So you're looking at least 3, if not 4, potentially even more dudes. And I was trying to think of something that could rhyme with more there. Tyler Moore, guys that could really make a difference in the passing game, which means you're deep. So now you've got options in the passing game, means you can swap dudes out, put them in for run plays. You've got threats as far as misdirection, right? Maybe you hit Bramer a few different times. You sneak in Alexander on the weak side. Looks like maybe it's going to be a pass, like drop him out in a corner, slide Alexander across the formation, whatever it is. Less expected. Boom. You've got more guys, more opportunities to do things. I think there could be great production from the tight ends in the passing game this season. Now, do I think that they're going to be a bigger role than the wide receivers? I don't think that's necessarily the case. Only time will tell. I am very excited about what Chase Sowell and Xavier Townsend could do. And then obviously Eli Green, another guy that I'm super excited about. Brett Eskelson, a guy that has been mentioned multiple times as a guy who's turning heads, or at least in the spring games or spring practices. He was really lighting it up. So I think the wide receiver room is going to be just fine. I'm not saying that, well, we're going to have to completely rely on the tight ends this year. I'm not saying that. I am saying, though, that we have the opportunity to expand our offense and really utilize that position, right? I think Noah Pauley, Taylor Mauser can get it done. I'm genuinely excited to see how this offense is utilized as far as these players and these positions and what does it look like for Rocco back there touching the ball every play. Next to him, though, will probably be a running back, right? Another position we haven't really talked about. I know this is about tight ends, but I just want to touch really quickly on, of course, Abu Sama and Carson Hansen, right? Two guys that got another year of experience. I think Sama really is going to have an opportunity to step into his own. I think the expectations were kind of weird after that Snowmageddon game, I guess is what you could call it, that Snow Farmageddon game where it was like, I don't know if you trying to think of a game you could play on super, super hard mode and then you switch it over to easy mode and it's like, this is so fun. I'm just too powerful. Like, this is the best. That's what it was. It was like Abu Sama just like was playing on easy mode. It was crazy. So much fun to watch. And so then everyone had all these high expectations going into last season and they weren't quite met necessarily, but it doesn't mean that he played terribly. Just meant I think that Carson Hansen really stepped up and did a lot of big, heavy lifting at the running back position last year. So it doesn't mean Abu Sama just forgot how to play running back. So you still have Sama. Carson Hansen, I think, is looking to make another step forward. And then River Peppers is a name that Matt Campbell himself called out as a great option in the passing game for the running backs. So you've got potentially two, maybe three down backs. Maybe Carson Hansen's a three down back. Abu Sama's kind of like if you need a break. I'm completely hypothesizing, theorizing here. This is not anything I've heard. I'm just literally making this up. If it were a situation where you've got Carson Hansen kind of as that three down running specific back or focused back, Abu Sama could, come in long yardage situations to break one. Maybe comes in whenever Hansen needs a break. If he gets a wind knocked out of him, whatever. And then River Peppers can kind of be that guy who, as a younger guy, doesn't need to have as many reps, but can come in passing plays, either as that chip blocker, not huge at 5'11", 190 is what he's listed here, but definitely large enough. I mean, he's not the smallest guy on the roster. Aiden Flora at 6, I believe that's a 0. If he's 6'10", it's different, but it looks like 6 foot, 185 pounds, just slightly smaller. So maybe the chip blocks, though, for River Peppers won't be as powerful as a 240-pound running back, but coming out of the backfield, utilizing him as a passing option, I think is a real legitimate option for the Cyclones. Like, I think really across the board, Iowa State's going to be just fine in the passing game department. All of that to say, named a few wide receivers, named a few running backs. The tight ends, though, I think will be the key to this team. I've said I think offensively it's the tight ends. Defensively, I think it's probably the linebackers. The secondary needs to step up. The defensive line needs to step up. We kind of just need to play better defense. But I would pick probably the linebackers just because of how many guys are returning and how much of an impact they can have. On the offensive side, I think it's tight ends. I really do. I think if the tight ends can be utilized in a great way and see a ton of production, that's going to make it easier on the wide receivers. I think that'll make it easier on the line, on the running game. Obviously, I'm thinking about the linebackers, and then out of the backfield. If the tight ends are a major concern and the linebackers are kind of zoned in on the tight ends, where's the running back going? Who are you putting on the running back? Like, I just think that the key to this offense will be the tight ends because we have the talent to do so. If you agree, let me know. Comment down below at Nick_Marv on Twitter. I want to see him. I'm throwing this out here now because we're doing Farmageddon Friday again tomorrow. Throw me a question this weekend at Nick_Marv. Just tweet at me. We'll do Mailbag Monday again. Can't wait to do it. Thank you guys for sticking around till this point in the episode. If you haven't already, it's free to subscribe. Helps us prove it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Until next time, Cyclone fans.